Hi, how is everyone today? Today I have with me Mike Paterson, and we're going to have a very interesting subject. Mike, take it away. Would you like to tell something about yourself?
Hey Sonia, thanks for having me on here. I'm just some guy that had an experience back in 2008, and I didn't go through all the normal channels of growing up to I'm kind of a defiant guy, right? Been like that my whole life, and I understand why at this point, right? So I was spending time in the woods on my days off with a camera. Just I enjoy being in nature, so I'd go out into the woods, and then one day I think I was being watched. I'm pretty sure I was being watched, and they liked how I interacted with nature. Like I said, I'm not your typical average kind of human. I don't sit well with this system, right? So I think they knew that, and that I have the proper character, I guess, or the right character. I wouldn't say proper, the right kind of character to share experiences. So I think they planted the thought to start looking for them because it just can't come out of nowhere. And when I started into the subject of Sasquatch, they showed up right away. So very first time I went looking for them, I had an experience, and then I think it was about maybe a year after that, I got invited to an area of apparent previous activity, and I didn't know what I was dealing with yet. But it was that was back in October 2008, and the very first time we went into this spot, my life changed. They showed up and they let me hear their voice in a big way, and just like my head exploded, right? And it was like a triple guttural whoop that sounded from a 10 feet tall human type chest cavity. It just I remember he sounded like he could speak English. It was so pronounced, and I knew that was nothing. I'd never heard anything like that in my life, but I knew that I knew it was Sasquatch the second I heard that. But that sound played over in my mind for months, from when I woke up till when I went to sleep. All day long, it would not leave my mind. It just played over and over. And then I went back the very next. Oh, there was right before that happened, there was a really rapid triple chest thump kind of sound. Like when you hear a gorilla thump its chest, kind of that hollow type sound. And I remember that happened just seconds before that call. So the guy I was with, we both heard it and we stopped dead in our tracks, and then came the vocalization, right? So I went back the next week and I heard that exact same chest thump sound, the exact same thing that I heard the week before, only this time I was by myself. And at that point, at that time I was looking for a photograph of a lifetime, basically, right? And because again, I didn't understand what I was dealing with yet. So they knew my intention, right? And that was that was the very next week, and they already right then gave me my first experience of high strangeness, because next thing I knew, I was driving home, and I didn't know how I got to where I was. I was basically driving home my vehicle, and I had to give my head a shake and say, "Wait a sec, I was just back there." They sent me away, right?
Yeah.
And not out of not out of malevolence, or there was nothing nasty about it. They just made me go away without my knowledge of leaving. And I spent the next 4 years going into that area, after that, right, having numerous experiences in that. So but usually I don't start an interview that way, telling people I'm defiant against the system and all that, right? So I'm just I grew up, I guess, I don't know what to say. Like I said, I didn't grow up and follow everybody else with the whole education thing and that. I'm intelligent as far as I'm concerned, especially considering what I see going on out in the world, right? All these people lining up for poison experimental injections. As soon as that happened, the instant they started that, I knew what they were doing. I knew exactly what was going on. So, when I'm talking about intelligence, I can see through all the stuff that's going on in this world, right? So, I've never been one to really abide by authority. I remember one time my mom said to me, she goes, "Michael, you've always had a problem with authority," and I said, "Yes, Mom, and I always will."
Yeah, absolutely. I know before they started handing out the you know whats to everyone, um, I was basically pushed to start a YouTube channel because I wasn't in cyber world like that. I didn't want anything with technology. That wasn't my world. That wasn't my life. And then I started having these visions of a split in humanity. And I wanted to make sure that I didn't care what anyone thought about me. I was going to start a channel. I had Arthur actually, I told him I need to do something. And he's like, yeah, you do need to do something. And he basically set it up for me, my YouTube channel. And I started running my mouth like there was no tomorrow from everything I saw. And this was before they started giving out those damn things. And my very first videos were, do you want to become Borg? Do you want to be Borg? Because that's what's coming for you. And that's not even all of it. Well, 40 videos later, because YouTube kept taking down my videos, they kept striking me. On strike number 2, by the time I had strike number 3, I should have lost my channel for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. And guess what? My channel, they kept saying, well, we know you didn't probably realize what you're doing, so we're going to let this one slide. Yeah, right. What happens when your glass technology doesn't work anymore? You got to find people like me so that you know what's coming. Because if you're not on a certain frequency to see what's coming up next, your looking glass technology is only going to work on the frequency that you carry. And that's why my channel never went down. And I have had so many videos taken down. That's why I started another channel on Odyssey. And I've been speaking out against all of this stuff since 2020. And I mean, everything that comes up, I'm speaking out about it. I don't care what people say. I don't care what people think, because it's only going to be a matter of a time and it's going to prove me out. And also because we got to do something.
Yeah. Yeah. Had people try to knock my channel off, and then they were successful way back in 2013 a couple times. I really had to fight because, people are filing false copyright claims and just anything to knock me down, and they don't like truth, right? So the subject of Sasquatch is funny. And when I first started, nobody was talking about almost nobody was talking about their abilities. The native culture has always stated about their abilities, but the white man has always dismissed it as folklore or, just tales, fables, whatever. And no, they've always told the truth. The native culture. Mm-hmm. And when I started experiencing that stuff, I sat on the knowledge for about a year before I spoke out, because I was documenting footprints in the snow. And everybody said, "Oh, follow footprints, see where they go." And I would say, I do. I know where they go. And I'd leave it at that, right? Because the footprints all stopped and went nowhere. They start and they stop, all of them. And it's been that way since day one, 100% of the footprints. And I've documented hundreds from Neff's family, from multiple family members. A lot of the time, it's one single print. I've had them appear right beside me in snow in real time. They're right there. I've had physical contact countless times, right? Indoors and out. It used to only happen outside. And then one day I said to them, "Hey, you guys only do this outside. Can you do it indoors?" And that night during that visit, they did. Whatever, pat in the head, or I've even, I think it was last winter, I think it was, I'd asked for a hug and I was outside and I got it's always very, very brief, right? But it's firm and it's there. And I got hugged from behind, and that was pretty cool. So.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
I do want to ask you one question. When you have contact with Neff and his family, is it a physical contact as far as talking or speech or communications of some type, showing you something, or is it telepathic?
Visuals have been very rare. It's like I have not been given a close visual yet. Dwayne has. He's the property owner. And that's where no, that's not where the photos came from. Actually, there are 2 headshots on my channel that are crystal clear, and there's been a lot of bullshit about that. Those photographs were taken when they were taken back in 2019. I sat on them for almost 3.5 years. They were taken by Dwayne, property owner, and when he took them, it was December 2019. I think it was close to midnight, and he didn't see him. He heard him. He heard his giggle. and he pointed his phone and took a couple of shots. And then, he looked when he went inside and he zoomed in, and, he's obviously mind blown, right? Neff is smiling, and he's got a grin in one shot and a full on smile in the other. And there's a difference in his facial expression. You can tell below his nose, around the lip area, and you can just see there's a difference in his facial expression, right, between the two photos that are taken seconds apart. And so he didn't see that. So I had asked him the next visit, do you want those photos put in a video for the world to see? So I had developed written communication with them. So I've been asking them questions over the years. And this started outside with a whiteboard and a, whatever that I'd leave in the woods, and they marked it. That's how that started, out in the woods. And then it evolved to a little notepad thing with crayons right outside the cottage door, which evolved to a chalkboard and a sketch pad on the kitchen table inside. So they're interdimensional. And when I started speaking about their abilities, I took a lot of, like I was saying earlier, the footprints. So I didn't speak up for about a year. And it was because I knew as soon as I let the cat out of the bag, I was just going to get hammered, right, with ridicule and all. And sure enough, right. And then then the vocalizations came, and I started putting those out. And again, he's calling my name, and I knew as soon as I started putting that out, people are going to attack you and ridicule you, because nobody had ever shown this before at this level of contact. There's the Sierra Sounds with Ron Moorhead and Al Berry that were done in the early 70s, but it wasn't at a level, really a personal level, like has been developed with Neff and myself and Dwayne. So putting that out over the years has brought a lot of ridicule in that. But with the headshots, even lately, they've made first they made AI thing, like a mask on a table. Like they go to this length, right? And it's got the same expression, or the same facial markings in that. So they were probably at it for a while to get that right. The color isn't right. It's not even close. They said I used whatever, I don't know what they said, shoe polish or who knows. I don't know, because I don't watch their bullshit. But and then some people actually, they looked at that and compared it and believed it. I said, well, where's the second mask then? Because there's two shots, they're different, but they don't say anything when it comes to that, right? So anyways, they did the AI thing first, put that out, and so some people jumped on that bandwagon, and then they had the mask created, the AI thing created. And what was funny is I made fun of the guy who did this, because when they had it made, the teeth, the mask doesn't match the thing on the table that they had made. There's no bottom teeth on the one that the physical thing that they had made. So I made fun of them doing that, right? And but it's funny, people, they don't want to look at that. They don't want to look at the facts. No, it's fake. So nope, it's fake. And they don't want to compare. They don't want to look at the facts. They don't want to do comparisons, and it's they don't want it to be real. This is the conclusion I've come to. Doesn't matter what I put in front of them. I have a literal mountain of evidence that there's a dozen years of comments, videos, interviews, and like I'm very interactive with people online about the videos. I get asked questions all the time. I respond since day one, all the time. I've never backed off, and you can't find a contradiction or a lie that with any supporting evidence, right? So they don't look at that. They don't take that whole body into account. They don't want it to be real. So they wear blinders.
I always see there's two things going on here. One, you've got the entire government who's trying to hide this stuff because it doesn't go along with the narrative, with the people who've created history, his story, and cryptids and Bigfoot and a lot of things don't fit into that narrative. So you've got that whole agenda going. And then you've got the common man who's been so dumbed down, I'm sorry, but they have, with the agendas of the deep state running everything, that can't possibly be in their narrative, because it goes against religion. It goes against Darwinism. It goes against so many other things that it actually scares the hell out of them. And this is what it's actually about. So you've got two forces. You've got the common man with their belief system and what they've been trained to believe. And then you've got the bad guys with their wanting to keep everything under wraps and still doing all their stuff. And then it's like you've got that small 10 to 20% who are like, you know what, I'm going to think out of the box. There's got to be more than what we're being told. And let's just go down that avenue. And that's us.
There's another big reason why they do not want this known, and it's huge, because Sasquatch consciousness, you cannot hide secrets from them. So they know the evil going on behind closed doors with military and government. They know it. Like, I have asked them numerous conspiracy related questions. They've shown me they hold honesty in high regard. And I've asked them numerous conspiracy questions over the years about certain things. They know the answers, right? And I trust their answers. And, you know, they know about CERN. I even asked them, did they use CERN to unleash Satan? They said yes.
Yeah.
Is the military, I can't remember my exact words, manipulating the weather to harm humans? Are they, you know, like, this is stuff I already know just inherently through my own intuitive understanding. And
the geoengineering is off the scale, and they've been doing it for about 100 years. They ramped it up in the last maybe 20 years. And that's why most of our trees are dead and dying, because the heavy metals, your tree will take in the heavy metals. You know how they find gold? They'll take leaves off trees and they'll check the gold content in them if there's any. And then they know that there's a deposit if it has a percentage of gold in the leaves, which proves that leaves pull in all of the metals in the ground. And when you're constantly saturating the atmosphere with barium, strontium, aluminum, titanium, you name it, those trees end up getting destroyed because taking those heavy metals in destroys their sap system. And if the tree can't produce its own sap to protect itself, it will be invaded with insects that it could normally get rid of with its own defense system. And this is one of the reasons why trees are hollowing out on the inside out. And most people don't even have a clue what that's about. But I should also mention I'm a remote viewer, where I can look into, there's no such thing as time. Time does not run like we believe it runs. It's all happening in the now. And the now runs like a circle turned over on itself, like a figure eight. And in that crossing point of the figure eight is the now that you are experiencing. And all I do is go to the now in different points and look at what's happening. And that's what I actually see.
Yeah, I know there's layers of frequency, and the Sasquatch understand how it all works. When I was mentioning with the weather manipulation and all that, we had an ice storm here last year, just devastated the forest. I stood outside, there was branches just dropping and breaking every few seconds, trees going down, and that was man-made, right? I asked them, they know it's man-made. So this is why they are a major threat to the bad guys, because of multiple reasons, right? And so they understand consciousness at a level that is, we can't even fathom. It's so advanced from us. And they are they know how to hide in different layers of frequency. And they've shown me in a drawing, they drew like an unhappy face with horns, like a devil's horns, right? And there was I think a earth with another connecting thing, and Dwayne and I finally figured it out. Some of these drawings, it takes us a while to figure certain things out, right? Like I sat in this drawing for, I don't know, it could have been a year or two, I can't remember, but going through it again one day and finally figure out, oh, okay, I understand that they are safe in this layer of frequency where they are. And as soon as we figured it out, we're sitting at the kitchen table, a marble comes out of thin air, it's confirmation, right? We get marbles every visit. So I've been literally witness to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of marbles appearing from thin air. I've had them dropped right into my hands. They even held one at arm's length when I was sitting at the kitchen table one visit. It was basically at arm's length. They knew, I turned my head for a second. They knew where I was looking, and it just started to appear. And they slowly pushed it through, just right here. And I stopped and I watched it, and that popped through and it dropped to the floor.
So I can tell you how this works. I look at how this place is put together. I call it a sim. It's a sim. That's how I see it put together. It's like it's got it's got dimensions. Say there's like 9 dimensions, and in each dimension there's 12 subdimensions. They're basically lack for a better word, different health frequencies. And in one dimension, these 12 smaller frequencies is where they're residing, because humanity is coming to a point where we're having an ascension, and people, depending on how far you are on this ascension, the body's changing on the inside. Some of the things that we just knew where our body was positioned on the inside are not there anymore. Do you remember where your kidneys used to be located?
That's down bottom of the back area, right?
Not anymore. The kidneys are halfway up into your rib cage now. Start researching. You'll be like, what? I remember kickboxing. You weren't allowed to do a small, below the belt because you could damage the kidneys. Kidneys are now halfway up into the rib cage. And that is only one of the changes. We have so many changes inside of our body that humanity doesn't even know about because you can't see it. That's because the entire species is going through an ascension. You have to ask yourself, why did they deploy these to begin with, to make you Borg, to change you synthetically into Borg? What if you needed to keep a whole bunch of people from leaving energy beings because they were going to ascend into being something else? Why would you do that?
From what I've gathered, information that's come to me that I trust is basically the Sasquatch, where they say, I had asked them one time, did the Anunnaki create humans? And they said yes.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently, from what I've gathered, is their DNA was messed with to create us. But and now at this point, our DNA is being messed with for transhumanism, which is where they're pushing us, right?
Yeah,
they want us completely disconnected from nature and source. They want that like 100% gone, and they want us connected to this
AI.
So they can remotely, completely control us and everything.
One of the reasons they push this, they've actually been putting, ever since they started geoengineering, which is chemtrailing, chemical trailing, whatever, however you want to call it. They started putting nano dust on us, self-replicating nano dust, la, 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 la. One of the reasons they started with this was because it was supposed to be the final turnover. Because humans were starting to ascend. We will pass the Anunnaki, the Naga, the reptilians. I don't care what you want to call them. And they needed to stop that. The problem is that most people are so uneducated. And even if you try to explain it to them, it's so beyond what they can comprehend. I call them normies.
Oh, yeah, I know.
The second you start talking about things, they're like, oh, well, that's science fiction. I'm like, do you even know where you live? Do you even know that's a holographic sky above you? Do you even know how this place works? Do you know what you are? And no, they don't. No, they don't. No, they don't.
They're stuck in this materialistic mental state where the mainstream news is gospel and their government is for their safety. They're stupid.
Yeah.
They're brainwashed stupid.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be condescending or demeaning towards them, but it's very difficult living at this point with this knowledge of when the vast majority of the population is completely brainwashed. And then those, like you get these people who got their PhDs and all this, and they think they're intelligent and they're still lining up for this stuff. And it's like, no, you're not. You're indoctrinated. You're inside a little box that you can't step outside it, because if you do, then you're going to lose your whatever career, your funding, you're going to lose everything, because you have to abide by their rules. And that's where when I first started talking, that's where I'm meaning that I'm glad I did not go down that route. With the education system and that, I couldn't stand it. I remember back when I was in high school, I had the top mark in 3 math classes. And I remember, I think his name was Mr. Harvey. He told everybody, you got to show up for the next class or else you got to write the exam, right? And I didn't show up. I still had to write it, even having the mark that I did, but I didn't care. I couldn't care less, right? It was kind of a bit of a class clown,
Yeah.
but I couldn't do it. I didn't even finish high school. I couldn't do it. I couldn't sit there and listen to that indoctrinated bullshit it just bored the hell out of me, right? So
Yeah. Yeah. I actually, my father was military. So I ended up living abroad a lot. We lived Guam, Okinawa, all over Europe, and then back to the States. So my high school was over in Germany. So I ended up going to an American high school, but it was military run, even though it was civilian. So it was quite different than going to an American high school. We had freedom you couldn't even imagine because I actually graduated in 1985. So that's dating me. And when I got back to the States, I was in some kind of culture shock from living overseas. And it's like, wow, it took me a long time to readjust to living back in the States. So yeah, I can completely understand not handling the school because my brother, who's younger than me, Kai, he had a hard time with the schools because we had so much more freedoms. And we came back to the States, and he was only going into ninth grade. He went to like a VOTEC school. I mean, he was actually having battles with the principal, the vice principal, what have you, because of losing his freedom. So I can imagine.
yeah, I've never done well with authority, but you know, to get back onto the topic of Sasquatch, because I don't think your viewers would maybe
No,
not
I want to know about
know what
Sasquatch.
I'm involved in, right?
Yeah.
And so I've been involved in a situation for the last dozen years with a property owner. He invited, I never knew him before this, right? And, we've become good friends over the years. And I got invited to investigate a property for purported Sasquatch presence activity back in 2012. And I think they were giving me like the first several years, 4 years prior to that, I think they were allowing me to get some experience first before they dropped this right into my lap. Because as soon as the information came to me about activity on a property and somebody wanted to come out and check things out, this information basically dropped in my lap. I knew instantly when I was told that this is it, this is what I'm looking for. I had a knowing, right? I knew. And sure enough, and I knew from day one. And when I went in there, again, I still had no idea about their abilities, even though I'd experienced their abilities prior to that. One night we were out in the forest on this main trail, and there's snow on the ground. It's brightly lit, moonlit night. Didn't even need a flashlight. It was so bright out. It's like 2 o'clock in the morning during the week, and there's this trail crossing the main trail, these tracks. So I'm trying to figure out what it is. Is this bipedal or is it from a deer hopping through the snow? So I'm checking that out, and suddenly I'm with one other guy there, and suddenly we hear bipedal footsteps crunching through the snow right there, right beside us. I remember I was freaking out because it's like there's nothing here. There was nothing there, right? But it was clear as day. We could hear these footsteps around us, and so they allowed me to experience their abilities then, and I didn't know what was going on, right? So it wasn't until I started this situation with this property owner, which is up in the Kawartha Lakes region here in Ontario, and it's all forest there. It's forest, just tons of forest, right? Very unique, transitional piece of geographical, part of this province, right? And when I started doing this, they let me know right away they were there. And I remember the first night that I went to sleep in a tent, and this only happened once. I chickened out, right? I think it was about 1 o'clock in the morning. I went walking down the road, and as I veered off into the woods to go to my tent, I had just a crappy little LED flashlight, barely penetrated the woods, right? I could see way, in there roughly where my tent was. I think it was he or she was peeking out from behind a tree because I only saw one eye, but it was lit up like it was brightly lit orange, like there was a light turned on in its head, and I had never experienced that before. And I've only seen it the one time. And I remember I turned around, kind of give a little nervous chuckle. I went back to the cottage and told them what happened. It was Dwayne and his dad at the time. And I ended up crashing on the couch that night, right? But it was only the one time. I only chickened out once, right? The very first time. And so now it's been a dozen years, and we've developed this over the years to where they are with us every visit, and it's been like that since day one. So there's never, ever been a visit where they're not with us. They're with us indoors every visit. We didn't, they allowed this to gradually progress. We didn't know the activity. We didn't know they were inside with us, at first for quite some time until, okay, things start happening indoors, right? And it's, with moving things, or it's very paranormal, right?
Very cool.
Yeah, at the point, it's at the point where there's been visual stuff happen indoors. I've recorded their vocalizations indoors. There's physical contact. We see marbles appearing all the time out of thin air. We have footprints in the snow appearing beside us in real time. The vocalizations are, I have built up a massive, I wouldn't say massive, but very substantial library of their sounds, of their vocalizations, mostly from Neff. So he was about 17 years old when this started. I got his age when he was 25.
Oh.
They wrote it down for me. So I guess maybe they figured it out in human years.
Mm-hmm.
So he was about 17 when this started. And yeah, I think he's about 30-ish now.
I was just going to ask you, how old is Neff, and how long do they live for? How long is a natural lifespan for Neff, or is it different for the females or the males? Are they about the same?
I don't know if there's a difference there, but they live, what I gathered from them was at least 200 years, human years. So when they gave me that response, I asked them, is it more than 500 years? They didn't respond. And they don't respond to all the questions. There's a lot of stuff they just don't respond to. Or I might have to change the way I ask something. Then I dropped out to 300 years. They didn't respond. So I know that they live at least 200 years. It could be 1,000 for all I know. I don't know. I know at least 200. So that's what I was given from them through writing, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And when they communicate with each other, do you think it's telepathic, or is it also just verbal, or is it a combination?
Oh, they're extremely telepathic, and it's a combination, because I remember a story Dwayne's dad had mentioned at one point. He's no longer with us. He passed away back in 2015, I think. And I remember he told a story where he'd heard a young one talking to an older one outside the bedroom window, and the young one was just chattering away, just a mile a minute. So they're having conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So a verbal conversation, right? But they are highly telepathic. We've both had experiences with that, and so there's different ways with their telepathy, right? Through verbal. The first time they gave it to me was back in 2013. I was sleeping on the couch at home, and they grunted in my head so loud, like I was asleep. I shot to my feet instantly. And I was on the phone to Dwayne. It's like, holy shit, you wouldn't believe what just happened. They grunted in my head, and it was clear that, it was them, right? Very, very loud and incredible. They have the ability to enter our dream state and make contact that way. And it's them. It's not a dream. It's very, the clarity on it is incredible. Their telepathy, the clarity on their telepathy is incredible. So they can speak in your head, or show images, or so they have different ways that telepathy can happen, right? With knowing, with downloads, that sort of thing, right? Like when I was first given the information about that property, I guess you'd call it a download or something. I knew instantly that this is what I'm waiting for, right? And sure enough, or what I'm looking for. So yeah, their abilities are absolutely astounding.
I was looking into the Sasquatch one day, and I wanted to know how they teleport. And I saw how they did it, and I thought, oh my gosh, I haven't talked about it to my daughter and Arthur. That's about it. I think I might have mentioned it to one other person, but it was the strangest thing. I saw them go into their mind. They use their biofield. We all have a biofield. I'd say that our energy being is our biofield. This is just an avatar we happen to be in. And they open up a thought. It's like a coin. You know how a coin is flat on both sides, but it's thin? But imagine the coin being as thin as a slice of paper. And they see where they are. They see where they want to go. They bend time and space, but they have to know where they're going exactly. And they go into their mind. They create this portal. They pull it out like a balloon in a balloon into their biofield and step through it. and then it closes behind them. And it was the craziest thing I ever saw.
I know that I know that we can disappear into thin air, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, we
I asked
can.
them if we can do that, and they said yes.
Yes.
And I don't want to give details on that, but I just know that we can do it. I know.
My daughter and I had gone out a couple of times when this, especially this last time, we've been doing this for years, where I want more time. There's not enough time. And time is the most precious commodity that we have. People think it's money. No, it's time. And we get into a place here where we step through something. Our phones that we take with us, they stop working. They'll be stuck on the same time. And we'll have been out in the woods for hours, and this phone is still stuck on the same time. And then we'll go out of it, and then the phone starts working again. And it's like, these are some of the abilities that are coming online for humans to do. It's the manipulation of time, because time is not what we think it is. It is very mutable and manageable. And if my daughter and I can do this, people are probably doing it all day long and don't realize it.
They have shown that we can basically do what they can do, right? And they are, they are our allies. They know what's going on in this world. We've seen. I remember there was one night I'm on the phone with Dwayne, or I was just texting. We were texting back and forth, and I said, I'm going out back because I got woods here behind me, right? It was midnight basically, and I said, I'm going to go out back and put my audio recorder. Tell Neff to come and say hi. And so we just try an experiment, right? And I walk back there, and it sound maybe could have been 100 to 200 yards away. I think it was 2 really loud wood knocks when I walk back there. And I don't typically get that like that back there. I've recorded them, but it's typically not when I walk back there and in real time, right? Like there's stuff going on here, and it's not Neff's family. It's, others, right?
Mm-hmm.
That I've recorded and I've had experiences with. There's been witnesses here to that activity as well, right? So, but that night was pretty wild. Just the coincidence of that happening. So I don't believe it was a coincidence, right? And we've seen how fast they can move.
Mm-hmm.
One night sitting outside at his cottage, and I forget what they were doing. If it was, but the sound basically started across the lake, and it bounced and came up behind us within just a few seconds, which was impossible, really, right? And so, yeah, they can do some crazy stuff.
Yeah, I always consider it a form of time dilation. All they're doing is dialing it up or dialing it down. I don't know if that's correct to say that or not, but from doing it with my daughter several times, actually quite a few times, I've noticed that I really haven't done it with anyone else but my daughter. It's really strange. It's like when we get together, because she's just like me, and when we get together, it's like there's not much we can't do. It's really weird. I tend to be able to do more things with her than by myself. She's actually got the ability now, and she's had it for a long time, where she can manifest things out of the ether, like boom, there it is in front of you. And she's done it a couple times in front of me, and it's like, how did you do that? She goes, I don't know. I just got real high, and I was thinking about every aspect of it, and then I wanted it. And it's like, okay, you need to teach everyone how to do this.
Yeah, there's a guy, Joe Dispenza. He's very well versed in manifestation, and I remember him telling a story about he teaches his daughter this stuff, and she's young, right? And he basically said, what do you want? She wanted a shopping spree, and so he teaches her his technique, and she wanted an unlimited shopping spree, basically. And it ended up, she manifested that, where somebody basically, here's the credit card, and she went and spent $7,000
Wow.
on a shopping spree, right? She put that to work and made it happen. And I've seen that in my own life, manifestation skills. actually not bad at it, always working at that, right? But I understand how it works. And yeah, you have to want it. You have to live as if it's happened already with those emotions. And, you have to basically be it. I understand how it works. So, I got something I'm working on. It's you can't doubt yourself though, right?
No,
Can't
we
have
can't.
any doubts. So it won't happen if you have any doubts. So, but I understand the technique.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I wanted to find out, I don't know if you can answer this. Do the Sasquatch know that a part of humanity, because we're having a split in humanity, a sifting, if you like. I don't know what else to call it. Does the Sasquatch know that humanity is splitting and a part of them are going to become something else? I call it like this. We were Homo sapiens sapien, and now we're splitting to Homo Borgenesis, which is Todd Callender's thing, that's what he calls it, or Homo illuminus, which is the rest of us, which is the smallest percentage of us. Are they aware of that?
Oh, they're aware of everything going on. Yeah, they know what's going on more than we do, a lot more than we do. I've asked them about certain things, and why aren't you over there, basically, where you'll be safer, instead of being here in this whatever shit show. And they wrote, "Here, help." Like, I gathered from that they're here to help us transition to get through this shit show. Really, I don't think it hasn't hit us yet. It's going to get real ugly before it gets better, right?
Yeah, well, we've gone through. I'm not saying I don't believe that. I absolutely know this is going to be true. But think about what we've already survived. We survived a what weapon. Oh my gosh, that's huge. If things would have went the way they were supposed to go, the majority of humanity would already be 6 foot under. That's no joke. That's no joke. We've already had interventions, and the interventions are, I guess they're in this split, the way things are working with this ascension, this body ascension that's happening. In order to go to a higher dimension, you have to have it here first. If you don't have it here first, this can't follow, basically. So you got to get the 5D here first. And everyone's asking me, how do you get the 5D? I'm like, yeah, you got to hold the middle line. That pendulum that Anubis was having, or even the Statue of Liberty, she's blind and she's holding a weight thing where it's with Anubis, it's the heart and the feather. And then with the Statue of Liberty person, she's holding this thing and she's blinded. I found that if you hold the middle line, and that means the center, can't go off half cocked being Jack the Ripper, and you can't go sit on a lotus paddle singing Kumbaya, my lord. You have to be really gauged toward the middle. That if you're not gauged toward the middle, we have a brain, a heart brain, and a gut brain. And they have all been severed purposefully. And we need to pull those things together and become balanced, because in the balancing is where the frequency rises and will stay there. And the longer it stays balanced, the faster it pushes this ascension. This is why they're always throwing shock and horror at you through the mafia media and through cyber world, and you name it. It's always to keep you unbalanced. And that's the biggest thing of all.
Yeah, I see right through what they do to us. They're always pushing fear, right? Keep us in a low vibration. It's constant. It's a very, very simple for me to see what's going on. It's and it's it's disheartening seeing people close to me that my whole family took those shots, basically, right? I'm the only one that didn't. And you can't open their eyes. You can't. They have to do it on their own, right? So
yeah. Yeah. Everything that I know, and I've been the person I have always been since birth. I'm not a liar. I don't invent stories. I try to see it what it is and say what it is and be true. And I tried to warn my entire family. And you know what? The only one that didn't take that was my daughter, Wendy. And she's the one that's got mad skill set. Everyone else was like, well, that's what you say. And it's like, oh my gosh, please don't do this. And I mean, I got down on my hands and knees and begged them, don't do it. Don't do it. To no avail. Yep.
I did the same, and no.
No.
No, I was told by some of them, oh, I'm grateful for it. So, all right, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
You shorten your life, I'll tell you that.
Yeah. So, do you see that the Sasquatch will start interacting with people as time goes by, more and more? Who's
They are.
left?
They are. Like I was shown back in 2013, they gave me a vision which was easy for me to understand, that they were revealing their existence to humans. And so I have watched this unfold over the years, like a baby step process. They do this, they're doing the same on a collective as they do on an individual basis. Everybody has their personal journey with them. They know what we focus on. Everybody gets their own personal journey with them, right? But it's the same for everybody. How they do it, it's personalized, and then they're doing the same on a collective. So for me, it's very simple to see how, what they're doing is basically little easing us into it, because it's a lot of information, a lot of knowledge, and just goes against everything we've been taught, right? So when this first started, compared to when I first got involved in this, there's so much more going on with this subject, so much more people having experiences and interactions with them, and being exposed to their abilities, and it's unfolding just like I've always known it would. So is that going to pick up at some point? I don't know. It's just, I've never had a conversation with them per se. I've asked questions and got responses. There are very few words, right? Like when I see people say, oh, there's 7 in that family, or it's like, how do you know? I built this trust up, and Dwayne has this connection, and we've been at this for a dozen years. We don't know how many family members there are. We know I think it's in the double digits. We've gotten 10 names over the years, but there's more than that. We know that. Still don't know how many are in their family. They're very secretive. They're just as elusive as they have always been since day one. Only, they're more willing to show us their presence, basically, because we have built that trust up, right? And vice versa. They know your intention, right? So.
Mm-hmm. One of my biggest things is that when I look into the Sasquatch, they have every reason to not trust humanity. I could just sit here and list 1,000 reasons why they shouldn't trust humanity. First, we're panicky as a species. Panicky. We've got those adrenals running with the the reptilian part of the brain, which was actually put into humanity for control. And that thing that was put into our brain with our adrenals constantly fight and flight. And then you factor in any kind of coin that could come out of something, because we're all geared toward got to make a buck, got to be a millionaire, la, 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 la. I can see a million reasons why I wouldn't want to contact humanity till they got to a certain point, because they're like little children wielding guns.
Yeah. I know that the children are very excited to interact with humans. I had an experience back in 2013 where this happened in the dream state, but it was so real, and it was real. It wasn't a dream. It's very simple to tell. And I remember I was sleeping on the couch and taking a nap or whatever, and I could sense an older female in my peripheral. I could tell she was there, and she brought one of the children to meet me. Looked about the size of a 4-year-old. At first, I wasn't sure if if it was a boy or girl, but now I'm quite confident it was a little girl. But the size of a 4-year-old human, and in that state, I remember I reached my hand out, and she took my hand, and she was so excited and so freaked out at the same time. I could feel her emotions when we connected. I felt her emotions as if they were my own. And I remember in that state, I gave my hand a little jerk motion to get a reaction from her, not to scare her, just, because I was so blown away by feeling her emotions. And I remember when I did that, it was like a explosion of energy, and it ran up through my arm, and I could feel everything she felt, right? And she didn't let go, and held on a little longer, and I could see her. She was like, it was like electrified, and she was so excited, and this look on her face, like I can't really see the details, but I could still see her. And she was extremely excited. And then, you know, we just let go, it dissolved, and I woke up and my mind was blown. I could understand how they feel with that experience. You know, I could understand at what depth they feel, and it's extreme. It's at another level. You know, it's beyond. It's
Do you know how long it takes them to grow up? I mean, does it take them like here where we are in this 3D density? We know what a year is. We know what 2 years is, 3, 4, 5. Are they accelerated because of where they are, or are they at the same rate because of coming in and out, or are they even lower? How long does it take them to actually go from being born to being an adult?
Well, when Neff was 17 years old, his foot was 12 inches by 5 inches on the width. So I have documented 6.5 inches of growth on his foot since this started, right? It's probably a bit bigger this, you know, at this point this year. This is since last winter. Nobody else publicly known has done that. I don't think anybody else on earth has documented. I have both. It's 4 or 5 different sizes now of growth on his foot over the years, and I think I'm the only person to do that. That
brings up another question. When do they hit their top growth spurt? You know, because some people still grow until they're like 25.
Well, so Neff, now we know he's roughly 8 feet tall because he has shown himself, just not to me, not yet. So he's roughly 8 feet tall, and we don't know how. Like they're people, right? So they're all different.
They're just people,
right? The big guy of the family, I'm not sure what his name is. We might have his name, just don't know. So back in 2015, he showed his footprint at 20 inches by 8 inches on the width. Neff's now is, I think, 18 and a half by 6 or 6.5, I don't know. But the big guy, his foot was 20 inches. Wow. So as of last year, it was 21 inches. So over that time, you know, so the growth has slowed down, but he's still growing, right? Wow. And he is roughly 12 feet tall, that guy. So he's about 12 feet tall. He was photographed as well, and his, you know, not as clear as Neff was, but and more distant, but his foot is still growing, right? And he's showing it. I think it was last winter. He showed it twice. We were there for a couple nights, and he showed it one print both nights. I think it might even been each foot. And there was actually the one night he showed his print, and then there's a younger fella whose name's Ninyanin, and he was witnessed sitting on the couch years back. He has piercing green eyes, and he was witnessed by Dwayne sitting on the couch. Dwayne was he was sitting there. I think he was sitting at his computer doing something. He had a big black dog at the time, and he could see what he thought was his dog at his peripheral. And when he looked, it wasn't the dog. It was Ninyanin. And at that point, his feet didn't touch the floor. He was sitting on the couch, feet didn't touch the floor. Now Ninyanin, his footprint looks like he might be about 7 feet tall at this point. And he's a teenager that I estimate maybe he's about 14 years old at this point, somewhere around there. He's very involved at this point with the interactions. I think he's around me every time I go north. He's a shit disturber, that guy. He's a troublemaker, but you know, and there's never any malevolence. Always, they're tricksters. They like to be pulling funnies on us all the time, right? Kind of annoying at sometimes. You know, like in Dwayne's kitchen, there's these pads on the chairs, and they have these kind of circular divots in them, holes, whatever. And I've sat down a couple times. He's got me more than once. I get up and I go to sit down. They're full of water, you know. So I sit down. I get my ass soaked. I remember one time a marble came out of thin air. There's a hutch in the kitchen there, and you know, with plates and stuff in there. And the marble hit the floor and it rolled underneath. So I had to lay down on the floor to reach under and get it. As I laid down on the floor, I got a poke right in the ass.
Oh God.
Yeah, just doing stuff like that. I've had my foot grabbed under the table more than once. It's like, how are you guys doing that, man? So they're always doing stuff like this. Or we'll sit at the kitchen table all night and have our conversations, right? And have a few beers while we're doing it. And I think this was last winter. I had brought some homemade pickles, and I had put some on a plate. So I actually started. We used to gift outside at this thing called the gift tree, up in the woods. But now this is so evolved. All the gifting is done at the end of the kitchen counter. So
They're just coming in.
well, they're indoors with us, right? Like Neff was actually witnessed where Dwayne sits. He can see that the counter. He's facing there. It's where I sit. It's to my back. I got a window in front of me. I'm looking outside. Dwayne's at the end of the table. He can look in the kitchen. And I had a 750 ml bottle of German beer for Neff. Like these are gifts that over the years, I've evolved to figuring out what they like, and he
What
likes
do they like? What are some of the things they actually like to eat? Well, obviously beer.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So I at this point, I'll bring a couple of beers for Neff. Well, first let me finish saying this. So the one night there was a bottle of beer sitting there waiting for him, and suddenly I see Dwayne's eyes light up, and he goes, "I just saw Neff." Like, not fully in the flesh, right? He just got a quick visual, ethereal, whatever. And I looked and the bottle was gone. So he just had a quick glimpse and the bottle was gone. Took it with him into another dimension. So when I show up, I figured out by chance one night. I used to have a lot of allergy issues, right? And I found out one day that microdosing psilocybin would relieve my allergy attack. So I would carry a piece on me in a pill container. And then I remember I had this 2 or 2.5 gram chunk of shroom in a pill container in my bag, just in case. And it disappeared. Dwayne doesn't do this stuff. He doesn't like it. And I'm like, what the hell? And that night, or that morning, the next morning, I have a recording of Ninyanin basically yelling his head off in the woods, having a grand old time, and realized that he took it. So I started bringing him magic mushrooms. So at this point, I've given him probably 20 times, gifted him magic mushrooms. He takes it every time. He loves them. So when I go there, I'll leave a couple of beers for Neff. So I'm basically giving a family of Sasquatch drugs and alcohol, right? So I give him a couple of beers. I bring magic mushrooms for Neff. I'll bring some fresh garlic. For Omra is the mother's name. And this was a name that was written down, right? I asked one visit, what's your mother's name? And they wrote Omra, O-M-R-A. And so I bring the garlic bulbs, and then I bring usually a bag of dark chocolates for the kids. So I'll bring like 4 gifts. And Ninyanin, the mushrooms will disappear. The other stuff's still sitting there. So, or sometimes they don't take everything at once, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, they know who each gift is for. And so I've been taking those 4 items, and they've been popular, so basically every visit. And it's funny, I don't go really looking for magic mushrooms very often. They just kind of show up. They come to me, right? Mm-hmm. I even put out I remember it was a Facebook group once, and I had mentioned, like, people had asked for, I forget how they worded it, but I had mentioned something about magic mushrooms, for a teenage male Sasquatch. And I said, I'm not kidding. And somebody actually responded, and I think they gave me, I think it was about 8 grams or something, right? And I gave them a foot cast, a cast copy. I have a collection of casts that I've poured over the years, documenting Neff's foot growth and all that. I don't give away originals, but I have one that I made a mold of that I pour cast copies in, right? Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, the gifting, like I said, it's very evolved at this point. It's all done indoors, which I don't know if anybody else really does that. If they're
I've never heard of anyone doing that.
Yeah, it's a very evolved situation. It's probably the most advanced publicly known anyways. I don't know what other people got going on behind closed doors that they're not sharing openly, right? But as far as publicly known, this would be the most advanced contact situation with supporting evidence to back it up, because they've given me, I record audio every visit all night. So sometimes I run multiple recorders, and a lot of the times, like especially when I'm on my own, I don't know if they're there, but when I get home and I'm playing those audio files back, oh, they're there. So I love recording audio. I've really documented a lot of their sounds and vocalizations over the years. My channel, my YouTube channel is I didn't even say that, Sasquatch Ontario. And there is, I tend to put one of their vocals at the beginning and at the end of my videos. I've done that over the years, just the way I make my videos. So there is a lot of vocalizations recorded, incredible stuff. Very, some of it's direct verbal communication. The clarity on it is fantastic for a lot of it. You won't find it at that level basically anywhere else, pretty much. Not saying there isn't others out there, but as far as the volume of what they've given me, they know what I'm doing, right? They know what I'm doing with all this. They know about the YouTube channel, and they know it all. They know anything going on in my life. They know what I'm doing. So I got to behave myself.
Are they really good at manipulating technologies?
Oh yeah, yep, all of it, any of it. They've imposed dozens and dozens of images onto our cameras over the years. Little short video clips, even, just kind of giving pieces of them, showing little pieces, or the audio. Phone, though, what they have shown me, what they can do with a phone, I don't talk about this. It's too much, right? It's like, nobody's gonna believe that. It's too much. They know how to use a phone. I've been given a voice message from them after joking about it. This is when it first started happening. I said to Dwayne, I said, yeah, watch, they'll give me a voice message next. On the way home, that's exactly what they did. My phone didn't ring. No information showed up. It just, all of a sudden, this light's flashing, and there was no information with it. My phone's never, ever done that before or since. There's always, I can press buttons and get information. And there was no phone number, just this voice message, and it was a vocalization from them. They were being funny, right?
Oh, that's cool.
But they can do a lot more than that. One night I have to really watch my phone when I'm on location at this point. I don't let it out of my sight. It's in my pocket. And Yannen's gotten hold of my phone before, and he has sent off some very rude texts. One night, 4 different people. One was like, I play music, so I got my bass player. He's the only guy that got one with just a bunch of jargon, nothing, right? Just blah, blah. But the other ones, like he actually texted my dad, and he said fag. my dad's not, but I had to, what I'm involved in with, like he knows what I'm involved in, but he thinks it's demonic, right? Because religion and all that. So I couldn't tell him where that came from. I just said, some redneck got hold of my phone that night. Sorry about that. He goes, no harm done. It's all good, right? And then, but a couple of female friends of mine that are involved in the subject, thankfully, they got some stuff that was even ruder. I don't want to say it. And I had some explaining to do. I said, that was not me. That wasn't me, man. I don't do that, right? So it was extremely rude. And he's just being funny, right? They have no inhibitions, really. It's just like, he's just being a little shit or big shit, whatever. Being a troublemaker, having, like I said, some of the stuff can be annoying, but there's never any malicious intent behind it. There's never any malevolence. But they do not live by the same rules that we do.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you also, what do they do like every day? Like, this is our life. We work, unfortunately, we work. And then we come home, and then we eat, and then we go to bed, and we do it all over again. And then maybe we might have a day or two where we go out and do stuff. That's not actually my life, but that's most people's lives. What do they do on a day-to-day basis? What is their life like? Do you have any idea?
No, they don't. They don't tell us that. I don't pretend to know what I don't know. When I speak as a matter of fact, it's because I know. from
Mhm.
experience. And if I don't know something, I never pretend that I know. I'll always say, I don't know, or, I've not had that experience, or they are of very few words. Like I said, I've never had a conversation back and forth with them. That I've had direct verbal communication back and forth, but never a sit down Q&A with them, right? Where I can ask questions and get response. I've asked questions that, I'll say things out loud. There's something that I shared on the last video I put out, and it's basically I had an incident. I had this mask on the wall that was given to me from Bali, and it looked very demonic, very like amazing carving, but and I always had a weird feeling about it. And Dwayne and I were talking about, this was last winter, talking about objects being attached to or things being attached to objects. And as soon as we started talking about that, I had flashes in my mind several times of images of that mask on my wall. And so I said something right away to Dwayne, and he goes, you've said something about that mask before, because I've always had a weird feeling about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just asked out loud. So what I do often is I'll ask a question out loud, and then I'll write it down, and they'll often respond. We've never seen them do it. We've almost caught them. We hear the chalk, or they like to do things behind our backs, right? It's just how they are. But we've almost caught them a couple times, like a I'll get back to that in a sec, like a point shoot camera that I've left on the table that they've imposed dozens of images. Dwayne's in the kitchen at the sink, and I'm sitting on the couch. We can both see the table, but I remember the one night he looks over and he goes, there's a mark on the camera. We both go look. It had just happened. And I had asked earlier that night for fingerprints from one of the young ones. So there was 2 fingerprints left on the camera, and they leave an oily mark, oily prints, right? But what was amazing was there was condensation on the prints, and we stood there and we watched that condensation dry up in seconds. So it had just happened, right? But so, anyways, I digress. So the mask thing. So I had asked out loud, is there a demon? Neff, is there a demon attached to that mask? Boom, a marble came out of thin air. Yep, basically responding. So I was like, holy shit. And I wanted it double confirmed, which typically he wouldn't do. But with this, because of the severity of that, I asked him again. I said, Neff, can you please just double confirm that for me? Is there a demon attached to that mask? Boom, I got another marble. They actually wrote down the name of the demon. I'm not going to say it, but they wrote down the name. I was able to look it up too. And
wow.
So when I got home, I took that mask off the wall. I went out to the fire pit outside and put it in there. I took a box of salt. I didn't, I just did this intuitively, right? Took a box of salt. I circled the whole fire pit, and then poured gasoline on that and burned it till it was ashes. And hopefully that's it, But
Yeah, that salt thing is actually very smart, because salts are crystal. And what most people don't realize is that any of the salts, they're actually crystal. And when you put it in a barrier, it's like binding. It's really, really weird. Especially if you take salt and water and you combine them together. I mean, water being a conduit. And also, since you're comprised of mostly water, if you took a little bit of salt and put it under your tongue and you not really prayed, but said stuff into the water with the salt, you're actually putting a somatic frequency in there. And when you drink it, you can actually cure yourself. I mean, that sounds, hocus pocus, but it's actually not. Think about it.
I've seen that. Is he a Japanese guy? I can't remember. It does the experiments with, putting hate and love and into the water and
Yep.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
Yep. It's very interesting. I would like to also know, I don't know if you can answer this either. Do the Sasquatch know about the multiple resets that's happened to humanity since this schematic started?
The multiple what? Sorry.
Resets. The resets on humanity.
Oh, the resets. Okay. Yeah, they say they were here before humans. So
Okay.
yeah, they would have witnessed all this. Like I would just love to be able to sit down and get a true history from them, right?
Yeah, a real history. One of the main when I go in remote view, one of the main things I see, now this, hold on to your hat, but this is what I see. I'm not lying here. I see that this is a snow globe. I call it a snow globe because it's a Dyson sphere, and it's on top of a huge, ginormous cosmic egg. And we are only one snow globe Dyson sphere that's on top of this huge, I call it the bigger Earth. And every time I hear someone say extraterrestrial, I'm like, no kidding. They're because they're from the extra land. They are terrestrial from the extra land. I mean, and it's like, did they come from inside of this snow globe, or did they come from outside? Were they brought in here when this place was developed, or were they already here before they developed the snow globe? You know what I'm saying?
Well, the last video I put out, I reiterated, basically, I shared this before. I have asked them, and and I get a lot of flack about this, and it's just like, hey, I'm just asking them the questions, okay? This is the response I'm getting, and so I asked them about the shape of the Earth, and it started with on the chalkboard, I drew a circle and I drew a straight line, and I said, can you tell me what the shape of the Earth is? And they drew an arrow to the flat line. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe it's just because everything looks that way. I ended up getting a drawing from them that with basically a firmament over the Earth, and they drew the sun and moon underneath. Mm-hmm. And I had asked them, is there an ice wall surrounding the Earth with land mass on the other side that bad humans are hiding from us? They said yes. I said, are there trees there bigger than any other trees we know? They said yes. So, and
not to mention, we're living on dead things. Most people don't even know it, but we're literally living on dead things. They have found now huge bodies of, you could call them dragons, because that's what they kind of look like ones across the whole top of Africa. It's like holding a fish. And then there's other ones like off the different places in the world. And it's like, we've been so shrunk down. We've become so minuscule and so tiny, and then encased in this stupid snow globe. And that's why everything outside of here is ginormous. And it's like, this is where we get your mythology should be your archaeology, because there's no myth behind it. It's real.
Yeah, there's, the whole stories of Admiral Byrd. All these images of Earth, they're all composites, and people don't want to accept that. They don't look into it. Like, there should be thousands of images of Earth. Yeah. And sure, there's all tons, but they're all composites. There are no real images of a full Earth. And the whole flat Earth thing, like, it's there was a thing where Obama was defending the globe Earth, and I'm like, well, why are you even going there? There was another thing where Trudeau, that he makes me so angry, was in a fire station talking to a bunch of firemen, defending the globe Earth. It's like, why are you even talking about that? Unless you guys got something to hide, why are you talking about that? We have, there's been cosmonauts, there's been pilots that have been asked, is it flat? Yeah, it's flat. That's what they say, right? So it's a very controversial subject that people really get their back up about. And it just shows how freaking brainwashed humans are, because they don't even want to question it. I question everything at this point. I question who wrote the Bible. I question everything. I question absolutely everything. And it's not out of disrespect. It's just, why can't I question it, right? So
when I start telling people that's a holographic sky above you, you should see the looks I get. And it's like, here, prove me out. Tell me this isn't wrong. You can take a sailor's sextant, which is navigating what? You're on the water. You can't navigate anything but the sky, right? You can go back 6,000 to 8,000 years, and you can find charts from India, from Hindus and what have you. And the charts match to the degree from 8,000 years ago. And you're telling me that we're spinning through space at thousands of miles an hour, running amok into space, and that holographic sky is still to the same degree as it was 8,000 years ago?
And you put a camera out on it, and just the what's that word I'm looking for? The camera with whatever, taking a photograph every few seconds or minutes or whatever. I don't know, the word's not coming to me, but it's spinning above us, basically, right? People, where they say the curve is, it's been shown that it's not. You can scientifically prove it with a laser, easy. Or there's ways of showing this. There is more proof showing that it's not what they say, then it is.
Yeah.
Right?
The biggest one is water doesn't adhere to a ball.
Yeah, you need
Water
it
does
has to
not
be contained.
adhere to a ball.
It has to be contained.
It levels. It's like a teacup. And the more you put in, say you got all this stuff inside of a teacup, the more water you put in, then here comes your floods. And it literally is this. This is your flooding system because of what's outside of here. I see huge oceans outside of here, not to mention the prime water ocean that's below us. Oh my gosh. And then it's like, oh, how do we have all these floods? Because we've had floods. We've had big floods in here. And it's like the oceans are so big outside of here. When they ebb and flow, it takes them forever to do a single ebb and a flow. And when it comes back as a flow, we get flooded.
So what I've gathered is apparently what it seems like everything has been inverted. It's a demon system and everything's been flipped upside. Everything we've been taught is a lie. This is where I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
We live in one big heaping pile of bullshit.
Yep, it's absolutely true. I can't even imagine what the Sasquatch think about how we were supposed to be the pinnacle of humanity, and we're as dumb as a box of rocks.
Yeah, it's not easy being awake when most people are not. So it's you can even point out chemtrails in the sky and people, oh, that's contrast. No, it's not. They dissipate in seconds.
That's right.
You see a grid pattern across the sky. What, you think that's a flight path? Come on, what the hell's the matter with you? I can't understand how somebody can be that stupid. It boggles my mind. How can you look at that? And they were hitting us hard yesterday. I haven't seen it for a while, and apparently it's all over southern Ontario here. But
every time I fly over that Atlantic Ocean, and I do it a lot, it is solid because of the technology that's going into these chemtrails. It comes out like a foam, a heavy, thick foam, and they are completely covering our oceans so that they can kill the algae on top of it. Because, most of our oxygen does not come from trees. It comes from the microalgae that's on top of oceans. That's where the oxygen really comes from. And if you kill the ocean, you'll kill the people.
They don't care about us eating because they just want to feed us
GMO,
Soylent Green.
Yeah, Soylent Green, GMO, genetically modified organisms. They found so much DNA in these fast food restaurants, human DNA. Oh my God.
No. And here in London, Ontario, we have the biggest processing plant of crickets. Massive processing plant for this is where they're making all the bugs.
Poison. We cannot eat bugs. I'm sorry. Our bodies are not designed to eat the exoskeletons of bugs. It will kill us. It'll destroy our intestinal lining. It's only 1 cell thick. It's going to rip right through you, give leaky gut syndrome. You're going to die horribly. It's horrible.
We are under attack from the day we're born, and we're being we know what's going on, right? So
we know what's going on. I'm always on my channel, YouTube and the Patreon. I dive in deep onto stuff I see because, like I said earlier, I'm a remote viewer and I want to know everything. Because what is that old saying? Keep your friends close, keep your enemies closer, so you know what's up. Because if you throw a blind eye to what's going on in this world, there'll be no one left standing.
Yeah,
and it's simple as that.
And with that, we're almost out of time here, right? So I just I want to share again. I have a YouTube channel, Sasquatch Ontario. Anybody that wants to understand about this subject, you will not find a better channel. And I don't want to sound like I'm whatever. They've given me so much experience at this point, and they want it shared, right? So I have been through so much dealing with this, but that's where you're going to find most of the best information on this subject out there. Really, you really will.
Yes. So everybody, please go to Mike's channel. Mike, I thank you very much for doing this with me. Maybe we can talk about some other things another day. How does that sound?
My pleasure, Sonia. Thanks for having me.
Okay, I guess
we could talk a lot longer, considering how.
Yeah, there's so much stuff. I would love to give you mad downloads of everything I know. But you probably need a lot of hours.
I was up late last night. I got a lot of audio listening to go through. So.
Oh, I'm sure. So, okay, then everybody have a great morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on where you are. And everybody have a great rest of your day. Check out Mike's channel. Bye.
Thank you.